Most people know how to cook pasta. I didn't. So there was my first problem. The garlic just turned black. There was this huge waft of smoke that went up and I was like, oh my God, the house is gonna set on fire. Hey guys, it's Ellie here. I'm an ex-au pair, so I was an au pair in 2013, so that feels like forever ago now. It's kind of crazy. Now I definitely credit my au pair time to a lot of the things I'm doing now. So what I thought I'd do is summarize the top things that au pairing has kind of helped me with in my working life. The first one is an obvious one. It's definitely upscaled my patience and tolerance. When you're an au pair, you have to be very tolerant, you have to be very patient with kids. You have to be patient with yourself because it's so easy to just beat yourself up over things and feel bad every time you make a mistake or have a misunderstanding. And I think, you know, over time you really learn how to be patient with yourself and your host kids and your host parents and your friends and your family and everyone and everything and life. Some people ask what's the difference between patience and tolerance. Patience is actually being able to stop and think and take time to process things, whereas tolerance is actually allowing things to happen and not necessarily reacting badly to them or reacting too strongly to them. And I'm not saying I wasn't patient and tolerant before, but it's definitely something that is enhanced through au pairing, and you'll definitely see that in your own life. I think the next one is being exposed to different cultures and customs and personality types and ways of communicating, and it's definitely broadened my mind when it comes to dealing with new people in the workplace and finding ways to communicate with people that I don't see eye to eye with. In your chosen career one day, you won't necessarily need to speak another language to get by, but there will be people that you feel like you are speaking a foreign language to because they just don't get what's inside your head. And I think au pairing really taught me, again, it goes back to patience, learning how to communicate in various different ways and being able to show what you feel and think and want to achieve rather than saying it all the time. And that is invaluable when it comes to careers and working and interviews and all that sort of jazz. Another thing that I really didn't think about when I was becoming an au pair is actually learning how to teach what I know. And now you've probably had experiences in school or college where you've had the opportunity to tutor one of your friends or, you know, help someone else with an answer to homework or whatever. And it's kind of like that, you know, you're teaching someone else something that you know. But when you become an au pair, you have that ability to teach your language, you teach your customs, you teach your food if you want to, like how people cook in your country. There's there's so many things that you suddenly find yourself teaching. And again, with kids, you teach them different ways of playing games or different games completely or different ways of expressing themselves, and they learn from you. And you know, you have to explain yourself a lot more sometimes. You know, if your host parents want to know something, you find yourself teaching and explaining and making sure people understand you a lot more, and that's invaluable again when it comes to careers. This one's really related to language, but I think it makes you slow down and think more about what you're saying. And of course, you know, for me, who's an absolute chatterbox and will talk you to death, I think it's really helped me understand how to speak to people in a way that's slow enough to make sure I'm being heard correctly, but also not too slow to feel condescending or patronizing. And there is a huge difference and a very, very thin line between those two things. And if you get it wrong, it can be offensive to people. So I think au pairing really used that opportunity to learn how to communicate clearly and slowly. You've probably been like me at once upon a time, and you know, when I remember the first time I went to France, and you think that if you speak with a slight French accent and you speak English really, really slowly, they might understand you.
My flowers are beautiful.
Ça ne marche pas. It does start to make you reshape how you think and what you want to express. Another thing with au pairing is it really taught me what I do want in my life in terms of work, because au pairing, it is a job, but it's not a job at the same time. You know, it can be if your host parents are really strict and you have lots of rules, but Edwina's probably said this hundreds of times, don't think about au pairing in an hourly rate because you'll get very depressed very quickly. So it's a job, but it's not. It's kind of that midpoint somewhere. But I think in terms of work, it helped me shape ideas about what I wanted in my future career, and those things were freedom and flexibility. I wanted to be able to have that freedom to go on holiday and travel when I wanted to. I wanted that ability to possibly be able to travel within my job, you know, and I've definitely had that. I like to be able to work from home if I need to. I like to be able to communicate with different people, and I like variety. So there's all these different things that it showed me what I do want, and for you it might be the same, and on the contrary it might be completely different. You might find that actually you want a very stable job where you don't have too much access to other people that are, you know, it's going to confuse your way of thinking. You might realize a lot more things about yourself in terms of how you work and your work ethic. Au pairing definitely gave me interesting perspectives. You know, sometimes I would I found myself questioning a lot of the things I did in my own life, you know, my own habits, questioning things that I was brought up with. And then when you start doing that on a regular basis and trying to understand yourself better, I took that into my new workplaces when I graduated university, and even in university as well after my gap year. You kind of just question, you know, if you find yourself doing something and someone else doesn't get it or needs some clarification about why it's important to you, it's a lot easier to kind of snap into, well, I do it because of this. I was brought up that way, or actually, yeah, you're right, I need to change my ways. You know, you kind of, it helps you tune in with yourself a lot quicker if you pay conscious attention to, you know, how your au pair journey's going. Last ones are working with kids. You know, I mean, before I was an au pair, I had tons of experience working with kids, and you're probably the same. You've probably had some kind of exposure to working with kids, and I definitely had, but I think it really broadened my mind in terms of what I was able to do with them and what I was able to achieve. And what I was able to provide and contribute in their life as well. Yeah, and the very last one, problem solving. You will do a lot of this as an au pair. If you have any stories about problem solving, like absolute dramas where you might have almost set the house on fire like I did, or got locked out, like I said in my previous video. I've got a very quick story for this one, and it's a total spoiler, and you'll see this in the Big Sister project. So long story short, my host parents texted me one day and they said, "Hey Elle, can you please cook some pasta for lunch because we're coming home and we've got some things we're bringing home that we want to eat with some pasta, so can you please get that prepared for us?" Most people know how to cook pasta, I didn't. So there was my first problem. The second thing was a problem I created myself. So I'd seen them in the past create like a pasta garlic dish thing, when all it was is olive oil with chopped up fried pieces of garlic, like browned garlic, and then, you know, you drizzle that over the pasta. Very simple, or so I thought. So I texted them back and I said, "Is it okay if I make the garlic and olive oil dressing for the pasta?" And they said, "Yeah, absolutely, go for it." I'd never made it in my life. I'd never heated more than like a drizzle of olive oil in a pan before, and I didn't know how much of anything I needed to actually make. I was kind of just winging it. So I cooked the pasta and then remembered seeing that, you know, there was about this much oil in the pan that Manu, my host, had heated up before, and then I chopped up garlic, but I chopped it far too finely, like really almost crushed. I put it in the pan after heating up the oil, and you can imagine heating up oil when you have zero clue how hot it is when you put the stuff in to fry off. The garlic just turned black. There was this huge waft of smoke that went up, and I was like, oh my god, the house is going to set on fire. My host brother was in the lounge. He was eating something else and he had no idea what was going on in the kitchen. I took the pan that was smoking, ran out onto the balcony to, you know, get the smoke out. Then I thought to myself, what do I do, what do I do? And for some reason, I have zero clue where this logic came from, but I put the pan on the ground for a second just to think. Then I realised that the ground was made of plastic grass. Hot metal plastic grass, you can imagine the drama there. So I lifted it back up, instantly realising what I'd done. There was this melted grass on the bottom of the pan, and inside was burnt garlic. So I ran back in the house, tipped the garlic and oil down the sink. Then I had to figure out how to get plastic grass off of the bottom of a pan before my host parents walked in the door 5 minutes later. Google did not have the answer to this one, so the first thing I did was run into my room, grab my laptop, Skyped my parents who had just been on Skype to about an hour previous, and my brother answers the call and he said, "What's the matter, what's the matter?" I was like, "Get mum or dad, quick, quick, quick!" And then they came running in the room and they said, "Who's dying, who's bleeding, what's wrong?" And I'm like, there's this problem, I need to get this off like now. So my dad gave me all these things to try, and I was like, I don't have that product, I don't have this, I don't have access to that. And he said, "Right, get your razor from your shower." I was like, "What, the one I shave my legs with?" And he said, "Yep." I was like, okay. So I went and got my razor and he said, "Fill the sink up with hot soapy water." So I did. And he told me to shave the grass off the bottom of the pan. And it worked. It worked. I was like, oh my god, this is like the most ridiculous situation right now. I'm shaving grass off of a pan in my host family's kitchen, and my host brother has zero clue what's going on. And then literally within 2 minutes of putting the pan away, I was like, and my host parents walked in, my face was red, and they're like, "How'd you go with the pasta?" I'm like, "Yeah, the whole garlic thing, I forgot about it." And they're like, "Okay, no worries." It took me 4 years to tell them that story, and even when I did tell them, I didn't actually tell them because I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wrote down all the things that were involved in the story, so the grass, the oil, the razor, the soap, the garlic, the pasta, the pan, and I put them on a piece of paper and I said, "Okay guys, I've got something for you, but I'm gonna let you figure out what happened." And they spent like half an hour trying to figure out what the heck happened in this story, and when they found out, they were like, "Are you serious?" Like, what is this? Like, how did you even... Ah! Yeah, that takes problem solving to the next level, I think, and hopefully you won't have that kind of drama. And it's probably not a typical au pair drama, but if you have anything slightly on the same scale as that ridiculous story, I'd love to hear it, because right now I'm like, is it just me? But all jokes aside, guys, you will definitely learn a lot more about problem solving, and taking that into your career is invaluable as well, because you're always going to face problems and challenges, and it's up to us to kind of figure out how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to respond, what actions we're going to take. If you haven't already, guys, subscribe to this APOP YouTube channel and head over to the Big Sister Project YouTube channel as well. I'd love to see you there, and I've just launched a brand new Facebook group and a YouTube playlist called Make Way, and it's all about, you know, problem solving and challenges and growing up and coming of age and what happens next, how to navigate your future. Definitely follow us on Instagram as well. There's the APOP channel and there's the Big Sister Project. I'd love to connect with you. That's the top things I learned from being an au pair and how it's kind of helped me in my career now, or in my life now, and I hope you found it useful. See you later, guys.